Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AWS Head of Commercial Business for Sub-Saharan Africa, Jeff Brown.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to welcome you here today. My team know that you're going to have a fantastic day. This is the third annual AWS Cape Town Summit. I think we're hosting over 2,000 attendees. And I think back to just 3 years ago when this crowd was maybe 600. So, fantastic. We really appreciate you coming from near and far. And again, enjoy the day. So we have keynote speakers today that you're going to hear from Vitality Health, from Mixed Telematics, from Pick and Pay, and from a fantastic Cape Town startup that's doing AgriTech for farmers and drones called Aerobotics. And outside of listening to the keynote speakers today, we have over 26 different technical sessions that you'll be able to attend later in the afternoon. We also have 17 different partner solutions that I would encourage you to go see in the Partner Expo. So a little bit about the agenda. We're currently in the keynote. That'll last until roughly noon. From noon until 1 o'clock, you're going to have an opportunity to go to lunch, go visit the Partner Expo, go to the Ask an Architect booth to engage with an Amazon architect or go talk with a partner. But then after that, at 1 o'clock, you'll be able to go to our breakout sessions that will last until 5:30. And then as always, we would encourage you to come to the networking event, which will be super fun, have a couple drinks, and kind of enjoy the end of the day. So a little bit more about the technical tracks that take place in the afternoon. There's 6 tracks that we'll cover on 3 separate floors of the convention center. If you're new to AWS, I highly recommend you go down 1 floor to Hall 1B and check out the Intro to the Enterprise on AWS. For some of the more advanced 200, 300, 400 level topics, you have 4 separate tracks on this floor. There are some favorites that I would encourage you to check out. We have an awesome talk about developing .NET on AWS. There's a great containers Kubernetes talk. And one of our principal engineers from Germany flew down to talk about the skills of a highly effective builder. That would be a fantastic one to join in on. And then last but not least, up 1 floor are all the partner deep dives. So companies like Trend Micro, Veritas, NetApp, Intel have put together some great speeches for you. So by all means, check out the partner event. And last but not least, if you get turned around and can't figure out where you're going, look for the signage around the Cape Town Convention Center, or look for an Amazon employee in one of the black polos. They'll be glad to kind of assist you and point you in the right direction. So, as always, we would like to acknowledge our global partners, Intel and VMware. Both companies have been supporting Amazon for a long time, and they've done a fantastic job of helping us put on these summits all around the world. We're going to have a little quick video from Intel, and I'll be right back.
The world is a wild and unpredictable place. And isn't that absolutely amazing? Products can catch fire overnight. A back-of-the-napkin idea can change the world. An incurable disease can suddenly appear vulnerable. So many wonderfully improbable, never-before-possible breakthroughs are out there, waiting to be discovered. And with Amazon Web Services using custom Intel technology, you'll be ready for anything. Ready to unlock a human genome, to cure a debilitating disease, to go to another planet, to teach the world a new language, to fuel the world. Because you'll have Amazon Web Services featuring custom Intel technology at your fingertips. Because AWS and Intel engineers have worked together for over a decade to make sure you'll be ready. And because you'll have AWS's most innovative and powerful cloud service platform to help you make the impossible possible. That is the power of AWS with Intel. So go ahead, chase the moonshots, double down on what's working, pivot from what isn't. With Amazon Web Services and Intel, you can charge toward the unknown, ready for anything, and ready to change everything.
That's great. Chase the moonshots. I love it. I want to mention as well, Intel has been a partner for a long time. And as I mentioned before, our global partner VMware is a company that we're really proud of. This is a partnership that we set up about 2 years ago where we brought together the world's largest private cloud provider with the world's largest public cloud provider. And if you're a VMware customer today, or you're thinking about becoming a VMware customer, I highly recommend that you engage those teams or their partners and engage our Amazon team in Africa to come in and help kind of partner with VMware, because I think there's some truly innovative things that we're doing together. Lastly, I'd like to talk about our platinum, silver, and gold sponsors. We could not put on the Cape Town Summit without their support. Companies like Trend Micro have been a tremendous partner of ours. They have an awesome talk later this afternoon on DevSecOps. Highly recommend, if you're interested in modern security architectures, to go visit them. But also check out our partnership with Synthesis, who delivers some of the greatest professional services in South Africa. So by all means, go to the Partner Expo and spend some time with them. So I'm so excited to welcome you here today. We know it's going to be a fantastic event. I would absolutely encourage you to consider visiting us at our signature worldwide event called reInvent. It takes place in November. It is a fantastic time, and I would highly encourage to bring a group of Africans. I'll be glad to host you if you decide to go. So now I'd like to introduce our next keynote speaker, who will give you an update on our worldwide business, but also talk about our regional initiatives and investments. So please welcome Mike Clayville, Worldwide Vice President, Commercial Sales and Business Development.
Thank you, Jeff. And I got to tell you, I'm just delighted to be here in Africa and here in South Africa and here in Cape Town today. Are so enthusiastic about what's going on, such innovation. It's a great community of builders here across Africa. We're just delighted to have all of you here. This is a unique time in history. It really is a unique time in history. I feel so lucky to be in technology right now at the confluence of such important major trends. The trend towards cloud computing, I believe, will be perceived in the fullness of time as the most important technology trend in the history of IT. We'll look back on these times, the times we're in right now, and we'll recognize, I think, 5 or 10 years from now, how important the things that we're doing today, how important they are for the transformation of our industry, of our businesses, of everything, including things like AgriTech, FinTech, Health Tech, changing the human condition, right? So I would just encourage all of you to take this opportunity to learn about as much as you can about these trends. We're putting this summit on here today for all of you to really get some education around what's going on in the public cloud. Take that opportunity, but more importantly, talk to people around you. Find out what everybody else is doing. This is a great networking opportunity where you have peers from across Africa here. Talk to them about what they're doing. Learn from them. You know, we've got now thousands of customers across Africa, from really big companies to really small companies, from really successful enterprises to emerging startups to globally dominant startups right here in Africa already leveraging our platform. It's really about how you take what we have as a platform and leverage it into unique business value. And we're finding companies from across Africa able to do that. Now, let me just give you a quick update on a couple of things that are happening in AWS. Many of you may have seen our earnings announcement from last quarter. We're now on a $22 billion run rate and growing at 49% year on year. Now, it's really just unprecedented in tech, and it's actually the fastest company to ever hit the $20 billion run rate in tech. But it's because of all of you. It's because of the builders out there that have found the AWS platform a very useful platform to create unique and interesting new innovations. I'll take just a moment and just show you, worldwide now we have over 1 million customers leveraging the platform every month. And it's these 1 million customers, all of you in this room, that have helped drive the financial performance that we have had. And you can see here how that customer growth has continued over the last few years. So I want to say, on behalf of AWS, thank all of you for your excitement and your energy around leveraging our platform. Without you, we would not have the kinds of numbers that we had. If I look back and I say, you know what, I wonder, if I really ask myself, I wonder what it is that is really driving this customer growth. There's really two things I'd want to talk about. The first one would be just the pace of innovation. AWS last year created 1,430 new features and functions. That means that every day, everyone in this room woke up to 4 new features that they could leverage to provide business value to their organizations. Each and every day. It's a super interesting capabilities that you only pay for if you use. But every day you woke up with new and important innovations. Now that's up, by the way, from 1,017 the previous year, and 722 the year before that, and then 516 the year before that. So you see, our pace of innovation is accelerating. Our customers are finding it very useful to leverage our innovation to create their own innovation. The other reason I would say that customers are really flocking to the AWS platform is just the breadth of services. Look at this chart, very complex chart, just a breadth of services. We have 125 different services available that you all can use to help transform your business as you go on your journey to digital transformation. And if you compare us to the rest of the industry with the cloud, you'll find that's by a wide margin more capability than anybody else in the industry. By a wide margin. Now, I'm not going to point out any names at all. There'll be no names on this chart. But I do want to make the point that by a wide margin, it's more features and functions than anybody else. If you're talking about storage capabilities, key kind of block storage capabilities, we have 50 different services available for you to leverage. If you're talking about relational databases, 6 different database engines for you to leverage, depending upon what makes sense to you. Management tools, 69 different management tools available, 71 different integrations with storage partners. For those of you building 21st century architectures, we have 18 different serverless solutions for you guys to leverage to create that next generation architecture. And then in the area of compliance and governance, which is, as all of you know, security is the most important thing for AWS. We have been building substantial new services in the security and compliance and governance space, leading us to 148 different services in that space, again, by a wide margin, more than anybody else, because we recognize that you all need that security, you need the compliance, you need the governance. Many of you are dealing with regulated organizations yourself, and you need to be able to apply the type of rigor and discipline that you could apply in any state-of-the-art technology platform. So, I didn't name any names, just saying, it's a much, much richer platform. So, a couple of things I want to say is, we're investing deeply in Africa. We're so enthusiastic about the marketplace. Just a couple of things I would say, maybe you didn't know, but we've got thousands of engineers here in Cape Town already. Cape Town was a place where we invested deeply in skills to do networking and advanced software as early as 2004. And much of that technology was the foundation of EC2. So it's a major EC2 development. We have hired teams from across Africa to help you to transform your own businesses. So we have account teams, we have solution architects, we have people here available to help you in offices across South Africa. We opened up our first office in Johannesburg in 2015. Obviously, we're here in Cape Town as well. We started our Direct Connect in 2017 so that you can connect your data centers with our data center architectures, right? So you can be right into our backbones and operate in a peering mode with your data centers. And then this year, we have put in a content delivery network, a POP location in Johannesburg as well. What we're also doing is we're working with a variety of entrepreneurs and startups in mentoring programs to help them gain that critical business traction. We've got a program called Activate that offers them free credits to help get their startup off the ground. So we're investing deeply in South Africa. And I'm delighted to announce today a new edge location here in Cape Town. So now you have one right here in Cape Town. Customers can see up to a 75% reduction in the latency of their content delivery. So AWS continues to invest in Africa and Cape Town in particular with this new announcement. I also wanted to just mention there's a few other critical investments that we're making. So we believe it's our responsibility to help promote cloud skills across the marketplace. So we're investing in a few really critical areas. We've got some programs with an organization called Girl Code that's giving and empowering girls with the ability to learn how to code at a young age and continue up through gaining them experience so they can get into the coding workforce. We've got a support for an organization called Code for CT. Anybody guess what CT stands for? No? Yeah. And Django Girls, another great organization, all really empowering young women and youth to leverage coding as a path forward for a career. But we're also investing in data science, which is going to be one of the most important frontiers of this next transformation of the industry. And I'm delighted to talk about this new the work that we're doing with an organization called Explore Data Science Academy. David Strucknell, the director of Explore Data Science Academy, is here today to tell us a little bit about his story. Dave, thank you for being here. Yeah. And his students, by the way. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about Explore Data Science.
The inspiration behind it, Mike, was the obvious fuel for any startup, an excess of caffeine and a lot of optimism about how quickly and easily we could build the product. But for me, it was twofold. So I have about a decade-long history in tertiary education. This is a kind of a natural extension.
Come on in. Yeah.
And I've also spent a bit of time in the corporate world recruiting data scientists and just exposed firsthand to this massive imbalance between demand and supply of skills. And I was very fortunate to intersect last year with co-founders, Sean, who's not here today, and Aidan, who is somewhere in the corner there, and a small team of dedicated people who were equally passionate about bridging this digital skills divide. And we were able to approach this from the perspective of what we would look for as recruiters of data scientists and then bake that into the curriculum, so emphasizing agile, sprint-driven, team-based, real-world problem solving as opposed to kind of traditional education models. And then obviously, critically importantly, exposing our students to the massive potential of cloud computing, hence our partnership with AWS, which is such an important part of what we do at the Academy. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, we're so excited to be supporting you and your journey here with your students. Can we ask him a couple of questions?
Absolutely.
So let me ask you, what kind of projects have you been working on in the data science area?
So at Explore Data Science, we actually focus on learning data science skills by applying it to real-world problems. Some of the cool projects we've been working on this year is actually understanding the Cape Town water crisis and trying to predict stock market movements on the JSE. And our latest cool project is actually predicting the outcome of the FIFA World Cup currently going on.
And how did you do?
My own model predicted Brazil and Belgium in the finals, so it might need a bit more work, but maybe next time.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Well, so let me ask you, what do you plan to do now that you've gotten some of this experience with the education you've gotten?
Well, I believe that we should be building cars that preserve people's lives. So cars have existed for about 130 years, but on average, 14,000 people in South Africa die every year in car crashes. So smarter cars exist where the vehicle stops if you're about to crash into a vehicle in front of you. But what happens when somebody crashes into you from the back or from the side? And self-driving cars are actually a safer option, but let's be realistic, people enjoy driving themselves to places, and autonomous cars have a hefty price tag. So with data science, I believe that we can reduce the number of fatalities on the road with analytics and machine learning algorithms. We can further change the structure of the vehicle to sort of mimic a cocoon, like in a caterpillar. So essentially how this would work, it would work in a similar fashion with an airbag, except that if you're in a car crash, the capsule would sort of encapsulate you in the car to protect you during a car crash.
That's very interesting, very interesting. Some really useful solutions and very important problems to solve. So Dave and all of the students, thank you guys for coming out today. We're delighted to be supporting you. So excited about your mission. So thanks for the time. It's so exciting to see our next generation of technology experts really diving in and solving real-world problems with data. It's super exciting. So I wanted to just kind of set the scene for education for the next, for the rest of today. And what we really want is for you to have an opportunity to explore all of these areas of the AWS platform that are emerging and that you can then leverage to continue your journey to the cloud. It is really a unique time in history. We're going to continue to invest in Africa because we're so enthusiastic about the innovation that's occurring here. And so I want to say again, if it isn't abundantly obvious, we're very enthusiastic about our partnership here with Cape Town, with South Africa, Africa in general, and we really are appreciative of the success that all of you have afforded on us, and we just need to understand that we really do appreciate the trust that you're putting in our platform, and we promise to continue to innovate on behalf of each of you. So with that, let me introduce to stage our next speaker. Jonathan Allen is an AWS enterprise strategist for us. He's been with AWS for about 1.5 years. Prior to that, he spent 17 years at Capital One Bank, the last 3 of which as the Senior Director of Technology, leading the bank's UK division as they use the AWS cloud. So without further ado, please help me welcome Jonathan Allen to stage.
Well, good morning, and hello, Cape Town. It's really great to be here. Now, in AWS, we are super passionate about builders. So who are builders? I have been a builder all my life, from a young age when I used to love taking things apart and rebuilding them together, to being at college, to building software systems. Now, developers are obvious builders, and I'm sure many of you here today because you are builders. But the chief marketing officer, the chief operating officer, they now need to use rich data sources to build new data models. Data analysts have to build complex data warehouses, pipelines, to get reporting for tough answers. And data scientists are building machine learning models on top of that data. They have to train, iterate, and publish those models for use by everyone else. Now, we used to build applications like this 3-tiered model. I myself used to build these in the 90s. They worked, kind of. But over time, the web servers became application routers. The application layer became really bloated with things we actually never designed it to do. Scaling became a heck of a challenge. Security became a heck of a challenge. Now, modern development tools look much different. We need to decompose these parts for reliability, for scalability. We need the ability to experiment. We need the ability to experiment with pay-as-you-go infrastructure. Now, one of the most appealing things to me as a builder when I started using AWS was that AWS came with an incredibly broad toolkit with purpose-built specific tools to solve these modern problems. Now, I love this example from iRobot. These guys make the amazing Roomba robots. And of course, they're all internet-enabled like most things these days. As you can see from this architecture slide, there are no servers here. It's fully event-driven. They only pay when it's used. This is a modern architecture with an elegant design. And really importantly, the responsibilities are all broken out, allowing iRobot to really focus on what's important for their customers. And that's to focus on the logic and the data and looking after their customers and let AWS take care of the scaling and underlying building blocks. So if you can see here in this diagram, this is a perfect example of what I would call a 21st century architecture. At the top, we've got all the logic components broken out. This is the bit that iRobot rightly really focus on. This is where the value is for them. And underneath, they're using a broad spectrum of serverless components, alleviating themselves from that undifferentiated heavy lifting that we used to have to do in those old 3-tiered models. Now, building and running data centers is a huge undertaking. I know, I've done it. It's incredibly expensive, takes a very long time, takes away enormous amounts of precious building time that should be spent solving customer problems. Not racking and running hardware, rather you should be building customer features. And previously, on-premise, planning for those capacity events that were sometimes only a once-a-year event and building all that peak capacity only to have it sitting idle for the rest of the year, that was a terrible waste. Modern builders want to focus on solving customer problems and innovating without focusing on those things that don't add value. And they want to consume those underlying components in an API-driven way. Now, iRobot is not the only example. We have thousands of customers. The most successful technology startups build their business on AWS, from Pinterest to Spotify to Twilio to Airbnb. Every vertical segment in the enterprise is also using AWS in a meaningful way. In media and entertainment, it's Disney, Discovery, Comcast. In oil and gas, it's BP, Shell, Enel. In tech, it's Samsung, LG, Schneider. In fintech and financial services, it's Goldman Sachs, Barclays, and my own alma mater, Capital One. So let's take a look at the evolution of one of these key building blocks, compute. Now, we have seen rapid progression from physical, where we had historically very, very low utilization figures. This was an incredible waste. And that's what obviously led to the rise of virtual machines. VMs emulated actual physical infrastructure. It was great for running existing software. We could get really high density of virtual machines per physical device. Now, EC2 launched back in 2006, and since then it's grown to be an incredibly broad family, offering over 13 different types of compute, from general purpose compute with the T2 and the M5s, through to the X1 series with incredible memory capacity, great for running SAP like BP do at scale, through to the i3 bare metal, if that's what you want to do, through to the P3 instances, which are phenomenal for machine learning, and all the way through to the FPGA instances there on the right, these field programmable gate arrays. And they actually were used to set a world record recently. Edico Genome analyzed 1,000 whole human genomes using 1,000 FPGA instances in 2 hours, 25 minutes, averaging just $3 per whole human genome of AWS compute. Just $3. Now, all of these compute types can be instantly provisioned with the push of a button on the console or the call of an API. And then, of course, containers took virtualization one step further. Containers allow you to easily package an application's code, configuration, and dependencies into easy-to-use building blocks that deliver environmental consistency, operational efficiency, developer productivity, and version control. And by running containers in a scalable cloud environment, you only pay for the compute resources you use. Now, containers are really great for microservices. And when incorporated into CI/CD, or continuous integration, continuous deployment, it allows developers to reduce deployment times for software from hours to minutes. And they keep the containers pretty light with just the components they need. But again, customers asked whether we could run their containers for them. So this is why we released the Elastic Container Service. With ECS, you don't actually have to deal with any of the container automation or orchestration software or any of the virtual machine clusters underneath it. This is all managed for you. And it's designed from the ground up to work with the rest of the AWS platform, like identity access management and auto-scaling. Now, ECS is used by thousands of customers, including GoPro, who actually used it to reduce their compute footprint by 70%. But we also see many, many customers running Kubernetes. In fact, according to a CNCF survey published late last year, 63% of all Kubernetes workloads were running on AWS. But there is still work to do running Kubernetes. You have to deploy a Kubernetes master and Kubernetes workers, and if you want high availability, you have to do that across AZs. So customers asked, can you run Kubernetes for me? And last year, we launched EKS in preview. It actually went GA last month. This is a secure Kubernetes service that allows you to run Kubernetes but without the hassles of having to build, manage, and update the Kubernetes cluster yourself. And like ECS, EKS is built with deep integrations into the rest of the AWS platform, including core, networking, and security services. Now, our goal is to make AWS the best place to run Kubernetes. And we're working upstream directly with the Kubernetes open source project to make that happen. But there is still too much orchestration that gets built into the container deployment process itself. And this is not how it should be. It shouldn't be about clusters or workload placement or anything else. Worrying about what virtual machines your container goes on make about as much sense as worrying about what physical server in an AWS data center your EC2 instance goes on. You should only care about overall workload characteristics like performance, network latency, geographic dependencies, along with what the cost profile is associated with those benefits. And so after running containers ourselves and with our customers, we set out to solve some of these fundamental issues. And this led to the launch of AWS Fargate at re:Invent. With Fargate, you only focus on your application. You do not deal with servers. You do not deal with any infrastructure at all. You can launch and scale really quickly and easily, and you only pay for what you use, not based on the overall size of your cluster. Everything simply becomes a namespace. And you manage all of it at the container level. And this allows you, again, to spend more time building and innovating and less time managing servers. So now we have ECS and EKS to manage container workloads and Fargate to run seamlessly and scale those containers. So really, from virtual servers to serverless. This is, again, to serverless. This is only thinking about the logic and data. This is the extreme development side. There's no provisioning, deploying, patching, or monitoring. All those details at the server and operating system level go away. And this covers an entire spectrum of services. So if you look at monitoring and auditing, CloudTrail gives you an audit log of account-related activity across your infrastructure. X-Ray provides an end-to-end view of requests as they travel through your application and shows a map of your application's underlying components. Communications. Now, message buses for years in the enterprise space have been the Achilles heel. Difficult to scale, difficult to patch, mission critical. Well, SQS helps answer this. Actually launched way back in 2006. It's grown to be a really powerful offering with guaranteed message delivery. First in, first out capability now as well. So you no longer have to look after those message queues. So really, when you look across the spectrum, we aim to deliver a really broad set of services. 125 services across machine learning, IoT, analytics. It's a phenomenally broad choice. Now, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite one of our customers on stage to talk about their journey using AWS. So please welcome Andrew Mays from Pick n Pay.
Good morning. It's really great to be here. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Jeff, and the AWS team for inviting us to share just a little bit about our story. I'm going to focus today on quite a specific piece. It's really centered around our business intelligence platform and hosting that on AWS infrastructure. But to kick us off, just a short intro on Pick n Pay. Pick n Pay was established in 1967 by Raymond Ackerman. We now have in excess of 1,600 stores, sort of primarily in South Africa, but going up into Africa as well. Employ nearly 40,000 people in our own stores and operations areas. But essentially, the business is founded on 3 core principles, and those are customer sovereignty, doing good is good business, and maximizing business efficiency. And I guess in the efficiency department, that's kind of where our story is today. We got more efficient in terms of what we've been doing with our business intelligence platform. But as an IT team, we're often getting faced with a question which I guess is a bit rhetorical, but it goes something along the lines of, what are we doing to be more relevant and accessible in this new digital era that we're in? And, you know, we've started a journey. I think last year, one of my colleagues was here and represented a story around what we've done in our e-commerce space, and I'm going to share around our business intelligence journey today. So continuing on the theme of our IT team, you know, we've got a number of strategic objectives, and they all revolve around, or at least a few of them revolve around, what services and solutions are we providing to our business that allows our business to be a better retailer? Who are we working with from a strategic technology partnership level to really take us forward? And what are we doing that's innovative? Is our architecture optimal? Are we gearing ourselves for the future? these are things which we're constantly focusing on to do better. So from a business intelligence perspective, we were faced, and let's call it the yesterday, with a number of different challenges. And this all happened in the back end of last year, sort of September, October kind of timeline, August, September, October, where we've for a long time been looking at what's the next step we take in terms of our cloud strategy, with the e-commerce side being, let's call it a year before. We really had some dire constraints with our physical infrastructure that we were using in our on-premise data centers. We were essentially running out of space. We also were looking to say, what does the future look like in software that's really going to take us to the next level, along with a future design to be geared for things like machine learning, data science, cognitive. We know they're coming, we're trying them, we're doing POCs, but when they land, we need to be ready to enable that in a mode 1 and a mode 2 environment. We had a problem which I think many people face, maybe it was an opportunity, is that we ended up with 3 different data warehouse platforms. Long history behind it, very valid reasons, capabilities at the time, but essentially we needed one platform that could be our enterprise corporate data warehouse containing all of our core retail transactions. From the baskets that you all purchase at the stores, to our stock management, to our margin, to our inventory adjustments, all those core retail transactions we needed in one place so we could work with them together. And then we had the business saying to us, we need to do this and we need to do that, and we've got this requirement, and we couldn't easily achieve them on any of the platforms that we had without potentially precluding some of our opportunities for the future. So putting all of this together, along with some of our existing partners at the time, we said, what does the new world look like for us? And that new world looked like essentially a re-implementation. It was a new infrastructure, it was a new database platform, and it was a complete re-implementation so that it could be architected, designed, and implemented in such a way that would gear us for the future. The technology we were using was SAP BW. We worked with SAP to say what is their roadmap around cloud and digital and machine learning and data science, and we opted to move to the SAP BW for HANA platform, which is their new platform, and we were going to use business objects on top of that, which is what we already have. So this is what we've implemented. It brings together all those worlds of the challenges that we had before in the past and the opportunities that we've got going forward. We will be finished the implementation towards the back end of this year, and likely by the end of the month, we will have 80% of the volume of our user base, which is roughly 4,000, 80% of their workload, 100% running on the new platform while we wrap up the rest of the migration. So just a short look into what it looks like for us. We're running on EC2 X1 instances. They're the 2 terabyte nodes. We currently have 4 of them in a scale-out architecture. We will imminently be adding 1 additional node in the space of what we call an extension node, which helps us to manage between hot data and warm data. And by the end of the year, that database platform scale-out architecture will likely be at 6 nodes in totality. On top of that, for the application layer, we're using the M5 family of servers from a BW perspective. And then from a business objects perspective, we're also using the M5 instances. All of them different sizes, depending on the nature of the configurations. And being inside of the one family also gives us a fair amount of flexibility. Most of the instances, especially the X1s, are connected to GP2 storage for storing the data side. It's an interesting story that we have there as well, is that there was a lot of discussion around can we use GP2 or do we need PI ops, but we successfully implemented on GP2. We've used striping to make sure we get the best throughput, and currently it's really working for us. We're currently optimizing a bit, so we're reducing the space, but we will have roughly 30-odd terabytes of GP2 storage, and that then syncs into S3 on backups and log files to make sure that we've got that retained, and also because the S3 buckets are regional, should we require it from some kind of disaster recovery perspective. In terms of the networking, there's a number of VPCs that connect all of these environments together, layered in very specific ways. We worked with the SAP and the AWS teams to make sure we had that correct in terms of what we isolate and what we don't isolate. So there's a number of VPCs, and we're in one availability zone. We have looked at options, and we will, from disaster recovery perspective, switch over to alternate availability zones, and that's some of the benefit that we get by being in cloud-based infrastructure. The way we connect to these environments is currently through a VPN, but we also, off the back of the announcement in 2017, or end of 2017, that was mentioned earlier on, we also have connectivity through the Direct Connect service. We've extended our wide area network into Terrico so that we can jump onto the AWS backbone from a Direct Connect perspective to take advantage of the benefits of a dedicated network as opposed to going via a public network. And then we also use various components of CloudWatch to manage, monitor, measure our environment, and also exploring the utilization of tools like PagerDuty so that our whole operations can be, let's call it, virtual. There's a lot of detail underneath this, and I will touch on it a little bit more in one of the deep dive sessions a little bit later on. So in summary, what are some of our achievements? I think it was mentioned earlier on, but definitely instant scalability. At one point in time, in about February, March, we needed to test something which was really critical to the environment, and that entailed replicating our production environment to test that it wasn't going to break anything before we actually applied it. And it almost seemed that it would never be possible, but in reality, we were able to replicate or recreate in a parallel fashion our production environment, and I think it was less than 2 hours. It's just not something which you would ever have been able to do in a physical, on-premise kind of hosted scenario. Speed and agility has been incredible. At the initial stages, we started on small M4 machines for our application layers. At some point in time, we needed to increase them. It really was a shutdown and restart process on bigger instances, and subsequently, we've moved to the M5s. We've seen really meaningful financial benefits. A lot of that is driven by not having to have a duplicated environment from a DR perspective, but overall, the financial benefits are very positive in our business case. Through this time, we've really built a strong relationship with the AWS team. There's been a number of guys in South Africa and across the world who have invested heavily to make sure it's a success and to work with us. You can ask the guys, I think I would send 10, 20 emails a day, and I'd have responses like within the day or by the next morning on every single question. So the investment from AWS and the partnership with us has been phenomenal, and I touched on it earlier on. From a disaster recovery perspective, we don't have to replicate our environment. We use an architectural fallback approach, which will cycle through various AZs. So in wrapping up, I guess the message is that your approach to cloud really requires fresh thinking, because the ways of the past are not likely the ways of the future. There's so many things that we went into it thinking we would do it this way, but actually there was a better way to do it. And that's our story. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. It's fascinating to hear Andrew speak there about getting the systems not only running, but also getting the data there and looking forward to the next possibilities. And of course, machine learning, as Andrew mentioned, is one of those great things where data is critical. And if there's one thing that's going to shake up absolutely everything, it's machine learning. It's literally going to touch every single aspect of what you build, how you build, even why you build. And there's probably no more familiar day-to-day interaction that we have than recommendation engines. These seem fairly trivial nowadays, as most retail apps have them, but what they do, how they're implemented, this is not simply a select star from a database. This is pretty complex stuff. But the business value is tremendous. For example, 75% of Netflix traffic is generated by their recommendation engine. You think about that. 3 out of every 4 things that people choose to watch is because an algorithm suggested it to them. But maybe not everyone needs a recommendation engine. Pinterest used machine learning for spam detection when images are uploaded. for advertising and monetization, for content discovery. It's used in almost all aspects of their business. At reInvent last year, we saw an MMA demo from our friends at AGHT Heed. It brings a whole new dimension to the world of combat sports entertainment. Huddle are using the same technology for feedback analysis to help athletes. And we ourselves at Amazon have a long history and heritage of machine learning, going back 2 decades. Whether it's personalized recommendations, or through fulfillment center with robotics, or testing drone delivery, where we're testing this in multiple countries around the world, or with Alexa, where we've sold millions of devices, and people are now finding a new way to interact using voice with Alexa. All the way through to Amazon Go, which is a new store that opened this year and combines multiple types of machine learning together. Basically, this is open now in Seattle. You take your app, you scan on the way in, you take what you want off the shelves, you place it into your bag, and walk out. No checkouts. And a short while later, you'll receive a bill from us. This is amazing stuff. And this is just a sample of a range of AI-related services we have at Amazon, many of which you never actually see. From how order fulfillment works, to how we pack our trucks, and all the logistics in between, completely driven by machine learning. And this continues to lead into brand new smart applications. And that's the magic of machine learning. Once you start embedding it in, you get more and more ideas, more and more return. It spawns more ideas. And we have tens of thousands of customers running machine learning workloads on AWS, including with the launch of their new brand yesterday, ABSA. They're using SageMaker and machine learning to identify and remove legacy branding from more than 40,000 assets. This includes 200 gigabytes of photos across 36 business units and 11 projects. And SageMaker will allow ABSA to do this with minimal human intervention and in the shortest possible time frame. You can learn more about that this afternoon in a session at 2 p.m. if you would like. So with all of this machine learning work that we've been doing, what have we learned? Well, we've learned that machine learning needs a new stack. It's not good enough to take the old types of compute or networking. You need this new stack. You need cloud scale. You need near infinite data storage. You need tons and tons of GPUs and CPUs to train your models. And we need this speed and capacity all phases of our processes for machine learning. From building our models, to training our models, to deploying and using that data to infer new ways. And we need this to be really extensible. The world of machine learning changes every single day. We cannot be locked into one framework or only be allowed to do certain things. We need to be able to adapt and adjust and stay engaged with the machine learning community. And we need machine learning to be accessible by everybody, not just data scientists, but to developers and everybody that wants access to the technology. Now, when you have that data, this is where machine learning picks up. It's the combination of your data, an algorithm trained to create a model, and then using that model, all that data of past behavior that you've got available to you, to infer and make a prediction of what could happen next. Allowing you to take everything from how potential fraud has occurred in your systems to potential new ways of offering customer service. It's truly tremendous. Now, way back at the start of AWS in 2006, one of the core tenets or principles that we had was to really allow everybody to get access to great cloud technology, not just huge enterprises. And our mission for machine learning is to put it in the hands of every developer and data scientist. And to do this, at the foundation, we have a very broad set of tools and frameworks, regardless of your machine learning journey. Above that, we have the platform service. This is SageMaker. This is where you can remove yourself from infrastructure and focus just on data, algorithms, and training. And at the third level, we have general purpose trained models. These are built for common use cases. These are just an API call away. You can embed these in your applications straight away, one line of code away from using world-class machine learning models. So let's start at this foundation, the frameworks and interfaces. This is primarily for the data scientist that wants complete control. We have support for the most popular Amazon machine images. For this, we focus on development. Now, one of the things we won't do is tell you how to run your business. You might want to use Cafe 2 for vision processing. You might want to use MXNet for video or natural language. You might want to use TensorFlow. And according to Nucleus Research, 88% of TensorFlow projects are running in the cloud on AWS. So we offer this broad range of machine images ready to go, including the partnership with Microsoft on the Gluon interface. Now, on top of that industry-leading stack, we have the new P3 instances. These offer 1 petaflop of compute. 1 petaflop. That's 14 times faster than the P2. So where do customers spend their time? Well, significant time is spent building, training those models, and then deploying those models. And this is where SageMaker comes in. Amazon SageMaker makes it easy to build machine learning models using pre-built notebooks and get them ready for training by providing everything you need to quickly connect to your training data and select and optimize the best algorithm framework for your application. And you can begin training with just a single click. And Amazon SageMaker will take care of all the underlying infrastructure for you. Now, to make the training process even faster and easier, Amazon SageMaker can automatically tune your model to achieve the highest possible accuracy, and it does this with hyperparameter optimization. This is incredibly hard to do manually. Once your model's trained and tuned, it's easy to then deploy it into production and have it scale. And it's at this point where you can do A/B testing, the ability to test different models. You can even do A, B, C, D, E, F if you so choose. That's where you can really understand what model is going to work for you. So in short, SageMaker provides end-to-end machine learning. It takes care of all the heavy lifting. Now, at this third level, we have these general purpose-trained models built for really common use cases. And these are, as I said before, just an API call away. You can embed them right now. So Amazon Recognition gives you the ability to derive content from your images. The same for video. Again, just an API call away. Amazon Poly, Transcribe, and Lex. Poly offering 53 voices to turn your text to speech. Transcribe, allowing you to turn voice into text. And Amazon Translate offers 12 language pairs powered by deep learning. Amazon Comprehend allows you to extract meaning, sentiment analysis, topics. Now again, builders will choose all levels as they need to. We aspire to be the best place to run every type of machine learning workload. Now we invite you to go to the ml.aws website to learn even more. Now I'd like to invite another of our customers on stage. Please welcome James Patterson from AeroBotics.
Thanks, Jonathan. I must say I'm very excited to be here today and to tell you a bit more about what we do at AeroBotics. My name's James Patterson. I'm the CEO of AeroBotics, a company that we started 4 years ago here in Cape Town. And at AeroBotics, we help tree crop farmers solve their pest and disease problems. And we do that by using machine learning algorithms to gain insights from drone and satellite imagery. We're really pushing the boundaries of technology use on the farm. But before we get into our technology, I'd like to take you through a brief history of how technology has progressed on the farm. So it started off 10,000 years ago, where we started using mechanical tools, just hand tools to farm small plots of land, grow food for ourselves and our small communities. In the 1900s came the mechanical era, and this made a big difference to agriculture because farmers could now farm much larger areas of land using tractors and combine harvesters. In the 1950s came the chemical era and then the biochemical era, which saw the introduction of fertilizers, which meant farmers had to spend a bit more money on the inputs, but they could generate a lot bigger yield at the end of the season. And we're now at the digital era. And what's exciting about this digital era is it's no longer about spending more money on your inputs. It's about using data and technology like machine learning to gain insights and really start farming a lot more efficiently. And in this digital era, it's now possible to monitor and track each individual tree on the farm. This tree over here has been reconstructed using our software from drone imagery. In the past, for a farmer to cover a piece of land of 50 hectares, checking each tree like this for pests and diseases would take a full day. With drones, it's now possible to do this in 20 minutes. Using our algorithms, we can find problems at a very early stage on a tree-by-tree basis. We then use this data to guide the farmer into the field to those exact trees that have a problem using our targeted scouting application. When the farmer collects data in the field, that feeds back into our models, continuously retraining and improving them. This is an example from one of our real clients. On the top left, we see a drone image, a small part of an orchard. Now, I grew up on a farm like this, a citrus farm, and when you're standing in between these big trees, you really only see 4 or 5 trees on your right and 4 or 5 on the left. So this imagery here gives you a much bigger picture. What we then do after the drone has collected the imagery, we run it through our models, which identify each individual tree and calculate the canopy and outline of each tree. Within that, we then run our pest and disease models and show the problem trees to the farmers in red. So very simple. The farmer can then use our scouting application to find those exact trees in the field. And in this case here, the photo on the left is one that has been taken using our scouting application. And the problem is mandarin starch accumulation. So this feeds back into our models. And where this adds a lot of value to farmers is instead of not detecting this tree, having it die, and waiting 5 to 6 years for a new tree to come into production, we can detect this problem early, and the farmer can get back into production the next year. So there are 3 major technical considerations we take into account when building our technology. The first is performance. We deal with a lot of data on a daily basis, and our clients are generally in remote areas with poor connectivity. So it's important for us to build high-performing technology that's delivering a good experience to the client. The second is reliability. We need to be able to scale from 10 to 100 to 1,000 farmers on a daily basis while keeping the system stable. And finally, agility. It's important for us to build and deploy products in a fast, agile manner. We've leveraged various AWS services to make this possible. We house all our data on S3 and then serve this data to our clients around the world using CloudFront. We've recently moved from a monolithic to a microservices architecture, leveraging EKS. This means that our products are now able to auto-scale dynamically. And finally, on the agility side, we've set up continuous integration and continuous deployment, meaning that our software developers and data scientists can work independently in containerized environments. Just some recommendations if you're trying to build technology using these products. I think it's very useful to learn the benefits of each product before you start so you can really use them efficiently, and to build your products for scale from a very early stage. Now, with our focus on tree crops, one of the big metrics we track in our company is the number of trees we've processed through our platform. And now that the underlying technology is scalable and the processing is automated, we're pushing ahead to get to 40 million trees by the end of the year. Some updates on where the technology is going. We're currently solving problems on a tree-by-tree basis, but using the drones to get in a lot closer, we'll start doing leaf-level analysis. So with this, we can identify insect damage, we can identify insects themselves, and very early stages of disease. So using this technology, our goal is to help tree crop farmers stay in control of the pest and disease management. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Awesome. Such a phenomenal, such a great idea, such a phenomenal use of technology as well. Such great use of data. Now, data is your most valuable asset that you have. And getting that data from on-premise to cloud used to be a problem. And customers talked to us about that. So we actually developed the database migration service. As of July the 4th, we've migrated over 80,000 unique databases. Now, you know it's not much fun getting that dreaded letter from your commercial database vendor saying, we're going to audit you. That is not a fun day. Data is your lifeblood for your organization. You need to be free to put it where you want to put it. Now, with DMS, you can migrate your databases quickly and securely to AWS Cloud. The source database remains fully operational during the migration, minimizing downtime. And the scheme conversion tool gives you choice, not just to go from Oracle to Oracle on AWS, but to go from Oracle to Amazon Aurora, or from Microsoft SQL to MySQL, and many others. Now, Amazon Aurora is the fastest growing service in AWS history. And it's really easy to understand why. People wanted the compatibility of MySQL and Postgres, but they wanted the cloud performance of them. So we built Aurora just for that. Aurora is up to 5 times faster than standard MySQL, up to 3 times faster than Postgres. And it provides the security, availability, and reliability of commercial-grade databases, but at 1/10 of the cost. Aurora is obviously cloud-native and offers the features you want, like encryption at rest. And it's replicated over 3 availability zones, storing 2 copies in each availability zone, giving you incredible durability. You can store up to 64 terabytes in one database. Now, we have a tremendous number of customers using Aurora today. And in May, we announced Aurora Backtrack. With Backtrack, you can go back to a previous point to the nearest second for up to 72 hours. You can rewind in an Aurora cluster in seconds, can invoke from the console or API. So now you can recover from a potential user error really quickly. But this is super tremendous for dev and test, where you can use it to reset between runs. You can program or test to do anything you want, because Backtrack will rewind everything before the next run. And best of all, you can invoke this from an API call. So your first step in your test script, and it becomes almost invisible, requires no clicks. Now, another very important feature is that of multi-master. Scaling rights has historically been a problem. Previously, Aurora used a single master. Now it has a local master in each AZ. If one of your write replication fails, instead of taking around 30 seconds, it will now take about 100 milliseconds, and it can transparently tolerate these failures. Even other multi-master systems like Oracle RAC will require you to have all the database servers in one room with a high-speed network connecting them and shared disk system. Some out there will promise replication, but they will only do that by butchering the SQL standard up front, restricting what you do. Aurora Multi-Master gives you scaling across multiple data centers and is the only commercial product to do so. And Multi-Master, Multi-Region will be coming this year. Now, modern workloads can be incredibly unpredictable, even more so in today's business, where you can have web, mobile, voice, business-to-business APIs. These can spike workloads at any time. And customers, as we know, have like zero tolerance on this nowadays. So customers told us they need on-demand auto-scaling, and they didn't even want to worry about the database clustering at all. So again, working backwards from our customers, and remember, 90 to 95% of everything we develop at AWS is because a customer has talked to us and we've listened. So of those 1,430 features that Mike talked about at the start, they're all from us listening to customers. And we've launched Aurora Serverless in preview. You can create an endpoint, specify that capacity range, and start writing. And of course, you only pay per second and for the capacity used, and it auto-scales up and down. Now, serverless is an incredibly important part of our building blocks for builders. Probably no more so than DynamoDB. Now, historically, you had to really tune a database because you wanted predictable performance and reads and writes. Well, we made that unnecessary when we developed the interface for DynamoDB. Now you just say, what is the max and what is the min you want? And DynamoDB takes care of it. We have well over 100,000 customers using DynamoDB. It can auto-scale to hundreds of terabytes, gives you really fast access with consistent single-digit millisecond latency. And with Dynamo DAX, which provides read-write cache-through capability, in-memory performance reduces response times to microseconds. Now, during Prime Day 2017, requests from Alexa, the Amazon.com sites, and the Amazon fulfillment centers to DynamoDB totaled 3.34 trillion. 3.34 trillion. Peaking at 12.9 million per second. Now, that is an incredible amount. Now, for DynamoDB Backup and Restored, we applied that same thinking that we developed with DynamoDB. We didn't want to give you a complicated GUI. You just want to click that you want backups, and we take care of it. And of course, it's the same for Restore. It's your choice. Pick what you want. Now, the reality is that our data lives in a lot of different places. It might be in Aurora for RDBMS, might be in Dynamo for NoSQL, might be in Neptune for graphing, might be in Redshift for warehousing. And they're all used by builders in concert. And some data sets are getting really, really large. And S3 is probably the most popular choice for data lakes. It's incredibly mature, with fine tunes like object controls for archiving, allowing you to move it off to Glacier, should you so choose. Ingestion mechanisms with Kinesis. And incredible support from the independent software vendors across the board. So we've given builders great database choice, but what about analytics? Analytics is when things get more complicated. What many people call analytics is not analytics at all. It's this work thing. It's data ingestion. It's governance. It's storage. It's access. It's not actually analytics. And this is where AWS Glue comes in. This is the spider in the web. Now, I know from personal experience that running extract, transform, and load is a crucial part of many enterprises. Getting the data to where you need it, formatted in the right format, is crucial for how you want to do it. And Glue gives you the ability to do that. It will discover databases, schemas, set privileges, track lineage. It connects to all the analytics engines, even with Redshift Spectrum, which allows you to execute exabyte-level queries on S3. And of course, all of this is critical to power the new business models we want to create using machine learning. So ultimately, we want to shift time from not analytics to analytics. We want to completely change that. And Glue is fantastically useful for doing just that. Now, we have thousands of customers using analytics. Here locally, we have Business Optics, Data Profit, Jumo, Mixed Telematics. And now, to share some of the amazing work they're doing, I would like to invite Catherine Lewis, VP of Technology at Mixed Telematics, on stage.
Good morning. Mixed Telematics actually started as Matrix Vehicle Tracking. A South African company started in 1996 doing vehicle tracking and providing vehicle recovery services to consumers in the South African market. Over the last 2 decades, we have grown to be one of the biggest telematics companies in the world. We're listed on the JSE and the New York Stock Exchange, and we have customers in over 120 countries worldwide. Over that same time period, our products have also evolved quite significantly, and we no longer only do vehicle tracking and security. Our fleet customers use our services to improve the efficiency of their fleet operations, to improve driver safety and road safety, and to ensure compliance with local working hours regulations. We do that by developing little onboard computers that get installed into vehicles, trucks, buses, cars, forklifts, you name it. And we gather loads of data about how the vehicles are performing and about how the driver is performing and where the driver is going. And then we transform that into compelling information which our customers use to achieve these benefits. And they access their data over the web or mobile phone or by integrating our products into their backends. So what really matters to our customers is the availability of our service, the security of the data, and the accuracy of the information that we give them. If a lone worker in the sandy desert of Australia pushes a panic button, it's critical that our customers get that message. If a transporter is carrying copper up the east coast of Africa, they need to know the minute that that truck goes off route or stops in an unauthorized location. So the availability of that information is critical, and the accuracy of that information goes hand in hand with availability. We cannot have any lags anywhere inside our system. Many of our customers use the data we provide them to pay their drivers, so it has to be correct. They use the information to calculate their fuel tax liabilities, so accuracy is critical. And I think everyone in this room knows about the importance of security and data privacy. Just at the end of May, the European GDPR regulation came into effect, and that has put a whole new burden on us as a data processor and data controller when it comes to how we process, manage, access, and store a customer's data. So these were some of the things that we had to take into account when embarking on the journey with AWS. And it's interesting that the word journey has been used a few times today because it is a journey. It's not a one-off activity. We used to have our own equipment hosted at data centers in Cape Town, Bryanston, and London, and we used another cloud provider in the US. So when we started with AWS about 4 years ago, we first set up instances in Sydney and in Dublin. Dublin was a QA environment, and we used that to see if the latency from Cape Town to Ireland would be an issue, and it wasn't. We put our Asia-Pacific customers onto the Sydney instances, and they absolutely loved it. And so we took the decision to move everything to AWS. So we moved Cape Town, Joburg, London, and the US over the last 2 years. We migrated all of them. We still have 2 satellite data centers in Algeria and Oman, which are not AWS, and the reason for that is we've got large client bases in those two countries, and there are data protection laws prohibiting us from moving data out of those countries, which actually does present a bit of a problem to us as we use more and more of the AWS tech stack. We've also got tiny footprints in Sao Paulo and Frankfurt for some peripheral applications. In moving to AWS, we've managed to reduce our server footprint from over 1,000 servers to about 632. We store 1.2 petabytes of data, and that's across S3, EBS, Glacier, Snapshot, and Aurora. We use Aurora for all of our high-volume data, which in our world is events and positions. So we've got about 75 terabytes on 3 instances of Aurora across 3 availability zones. One of our Aurora tables in Dublin houses about 17.5 billion positions, and that's about 4 months of data from customers in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. So that's about 20 terabytes in one table alone. And in real life, this is what it looks like. So if you ever visit our offices in Stellenbosch, we'll take you to our operations center, and this is up on one of the screens. Every little dot represents a vehicle in the world that is connected to our service in the last 15 minutes. So all of those positions are being served up from AWS. We manage just under 700,000 vehicles worldwide. So when we started the journey to AWS, our mission was just to move our infrastructure. So it was more of a hosting thing. We just wanted to move everything as much as we could over to AWS. But in the last 2 years, we've also been able to take advantage of a lot of the products in the AWS tech stack. We are now almost completely reliant on Aurora and RDS for our backend. We use Aurora MySQL and PostgreSQL. We use SQL Server on RDS, PostgreSQL on RDS. We use Elastic Cache. We used to manage our own Redis instances. We now use Redis on Elastic Cache. We're using encryption. We use CloudWatch for monitoring and analytics. We use Snapshot technologies for DR. In the past, if there was a complete disaster, like a data center burning down, it would have taken us days to recover. Now we can do that in probably 20 to 30 minutes. So we really are taking advantage of a lot of the AWS offering, and that is a recommendation from me, is you need to invest in everything that AWS can offer you to get real value for your investment. Looking ahead, we're doing a machine learning POC. We are probably going to be using Kinesis Firehose for a custom data feeds platform that's in development now. We're looking at Redshift, Spectrum, and Athena for a new product offering that we are currently developing. And there are a number of other things that we are looking at using. And I'm sure in 2 years' time, this slide is going to be full of a whole lot of icons of services that we don't even know about yet. The benefits that we've had from this move have been enormous. I can tell you that moving to AWS has far exceeded our expectations. Obviously, the biggest one is availability, and that is obviously a key benefit for our customers as well. But nowadays, if we have any sort of outage, it's never infrastructure related. It's usually a telco's network somewhere that isn't working properly, or it's an application issue. It's never the infrastructure. So the availability has been fantastic. I mentioned our DR solution that we've now got in place, which is great. The scalability has been excellent. It's improved productivity because with all these managed services, our developers can get on developing our core products without having to worry about how things are being managed in the background. We've also achieved significant cost savings, especially with moving off Microsoft SQL Server onto Aurora. We've been able to reduce our Microsoft licensing costs, and there's definitely more opportunity for more of that as well as we leverage more of the product offering. And lastly, just to summarize some of the key lessons that we've learned, which I would impart to anyone who is thinking of going on this journey. The first thing is you have to understand what you're getting into. You need to understand the product offering from AWS. You need to understand how your products or your systems will fit in there and how you should be architecting them or setting them up in such a way that you don't incur unnecessary costs. You also need to understand where your responsibility ends and where AWS's responsibility starts. Just because a lot of these things are offered as a managed service doesn't mean you can't still stuff things up. As Ross said, Ross is speaking this afternoon, and he architected our service. He's the main architect of our move to Aurora and manages the development of our server-side systems. And as he said to me the other day, you can still stuff things up. The difference now is AWS will manage the stuff up for you. The other thing that's very important is keeping control of your costs. And as a techie wouldn't really care about that, and that's the problem, because it's so easy to just spin up another instance or add a server and do this, and you hit a performance problem, and the first thing is, oh, just add. And before you know it, your costs have gone through the roof. So you have to keep an eye on your costs. If you just spin things up, remember to spin them down again, and keep an eye on that. We've actually invested in a product called Cloud Aware, which is, I think it's in the AWS Marketplace, and that gives us a complete consolidated view of everything that we're using at AWS, how we're using it, and it's really helping us actually drive down the costs. Because AWS isn't the cheapest solution out there, but it certainly gives you the most value for money with your investment in them. And just quick, 2 more points. The other thing is planning is critically important, especially if you're moving data centers. So when we moved our South African data centers, a key issue was bandwidth and the huge volume of data that we had in South Africa. It took us 2 months to move our South African databases to Dublin. It took us 1 weekend to move our US data center. So that's just something to consider, because during that period, you'll end up paying 2 service providers, and that can also rack up the costs. And then my last point is just invest. You have to invest in your relationship with AWS. You have to invest as a business in your product roadmap and your development budget to make sure that you're actually developing in such a way that you can take advantage of the AWS product offering. And you have to invest in your people. Every year we send 4 or 5 people to reInvent in Vegas. We've probably got 25 people here today. You have to invest in your people and make them part of the journey that your business is undertaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. That's such an amazing story. I love that infographic. I'd have that in my cube, not just in my operations center. I think it's amazing. So thank you very much, Catherine. Now, we are really privileged to have amazing customers. And they all give us great feedback. And we're continually striving to take that feedback and make it benefit all. And we're pouring that feedback all the time into the well-architected framework. And this is born from years of helping customers with their architectures to solve problems. And as a customer, a well-architected review really helps make sure you're asking the right questions to solve the right problem in the right way. And one specific area I always like to direct people to is, of course, security and compliance, since it's more critical than ever in today's online world. Now, historically in the IT industry, developers and engineers would spend months building a solution, only to go to security, who would do a review, find things they don't like, and go all the way back round the cycle. This is a strategy that has been failing. The well-architected security best practices provides a real focus on security at every build, run, and optimize stage. And the truth is, security is everyone's job. All of us need to continually be thinking about security at every stage, from idea through to build, through to go live, to running. At AWS, we're focused on security so much, and a particular principle has been to make security easy to use, that it doesn't become a barrier. It becomes an enabler. At AWS, protecting our customers will forever be our #1 priority. It will forever be be our #1 investment area. We will not hesitate to shift developers from building features if we feel it isn't where it needs to be. So when you've got this tremendous pace of innovation, with this pace of protection that you also need, the answer is to automate it. There's some great services to do that. Automation of auditing with AWS CloudTrail, which gives you complete insight into exactly who is accessing what services, what they're doing with these services, and when they are doing it. It's all recorded automatically and delivered to you in log files. And encryption. You know, there are no reasons anymore why, as a customer, you shouldn't encrypt in transit and at rest all the time. Not only is your request encrypted in transit, but it is also encrypted at rest across a variety of AWS services, and the keys can be fully managed for you in KMS, whether they are our keys or yours. We give you complete control over who has access to what, and it's all auditable via CloudTrail. This is what we're talking about when we say security in 21st century architectures. Everybody should be encrypting their data at all opportunities with KMS. Or automating with Secrets Manager. Now, in the world of technology, we have always had to manage a multitude of keys, passwords, passphrases, and storing passcode in source code is a terrible, terrible idea. We have all heard stories of what happens when this happens. So rotating and ensuring that only the right services and roles have access to these security mechanisms has rightly been a huge job. And our customers asked us to find a way to help them automate this. And this has been done with Secrets Manager. Now you can easily rotate, manage, and retrieve database credentials, keys, and other secrets throughout their lifecycle with just an API call. So this pace of innovation, meeting protection through automation, through every stage, is what we talk about with these 21st century architectures. Now, for our final customer of the day, I'd like to invite Neil Adamson, who is the Chief Information Officer of Vitality, to join me on stage for a brief chat. So Neil, it's awesome to have you here. Thank you very much for coming in today. Can you tell us a little bit about Vitality?
Yeah, so Vitality was pioneered by Discovery. It's a wellness platform. It's part of the Discovery shared value model. And what we've done now is we've started taking Vitality global. We run Vitality in Asia, around about 7 or 8 countries through AIA, which is a large insurance company there. We run Vitality in Europe through Generali, which is in Austria, France, and Germany. And in the UK and in the US through John Hancock and Manulife in Canada, and we're busy implementing it into Japan. So we have a global wellness platform now that's based on the concepts of know your health, improve your health, get rewarded. Same models that we have in South Africa. It's proven to be very popular globally because it takes what people are considering now insurance to be a very commoditized product, and it adds the wellness component to it, which really means everybody wins because your insurance company has healthier clients or healthier policyholders. The policyholder themselves is healthier, and you get much healthier benefits out of it.
Thank you. So now, as a customer myself, the attraction of using AWS was to get great reliability, scalability, and flexibility. What's been your main driver?
So we have to, most times we have to install the wellness platform in country. We've got huge privacy concerns. So for instance, we're installing into Korea now. To set up a data center into Korea is going to be very difficult, but with AWS having presence there, to install the Vitality platform into Korea is very easy. Same goes into the European Union, where we installed into Frankfurt, into the US, etc. So you've got a lot of flexibility. The ease of implementing a new set or Vitality platform into those countries just makes it very easy on the AWS platform. You've got a lot of the automation capabilities, which you've spoken about. You've just really got a well-managed infrastructure that allows you to focus on your application and implementing the wellness program that clients or customers want to customize in a much, much quicker way.
Awesome. And what's been the most surprising benefit for you?
I think, once again, it is the ease of implementing. There's a lot of benefits around Amazon, but also you've got to, as per the previous speaker, you do have to understand what you're doing, how you're doing it. I think the automation tools are great, but I think you also need to understand what you want to automate and actually know how you're going to do it prior to automating it. Otherwise, you end up in a bit of a mess. Understanding where your servers are, understanding what your capabilities are in each country is also critical. But once you know that, the ease of implementing the solution into that country is much easier.
Awesome. Now, if you were to pass on a tip to the audience on using AWS, what would it be?
I think there's a lot to learn. I think we assume people say you're just going to spin up 40 servers and you're going to start running, etc. You need to understand how you're going to spin those up, what your capabilities are. We've had to move server specs occasionally to ensure that we get the best throughput. Logging in a distributed environment has been something that we've had to learn to handle really, really quickly. If you don't get your logs in your application across all the servers that you're running across into a central place, you're going to struggle a little bit. In terms of just ease of use, that's great. We run our device platform on Amazon as well. Our database has failed over occasionally without us actually knowing about it. So that's been great.
But in a good way.
In a good way, yes. So that's been very useful. I think sometimes you forget that the underlying infrastructure complexity is still there. You do need to understand that it's still there, and you do need to make sure that what's happening in your environment is something you're aware of what's going on. But just being able to spin up an instance in Korea or in Frankfurt without having to go through the whole rigmarole of trying to find a service provider or trying to find a data center that you're going to install in, huge. The single account is there, and you can spin up what you need.
Yeah, that ability to go global for you has obviously been a really big catalyst and driver.
Yeah, so we initially, before we started on our Vitality One platform, we would take around about 9 months to implement into a local data center.
Wow.
Now we've got it down to about 3 months into a country, so that's given us huge value.
Huge.
So the speed of implementing into an Amazon data center into a country has been phenomenal.
Awesome. Neil, I want to thank you very much for coming in today and talking to us on stage. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Now, we've talked a lot about builders today. It's obviously a central theme for AWS, and I want to leave you with 2 final thoughts. Firstly, security is all of our jobs. Looking at every aspect and everything we do as we build these new applications is absolutely crucial and of paramount importance. And encryption is super important. And I happen to love this quote from Werner himself: "Dance like no one is watching, encrypt like everyone is." It's a great quote. And in the words of the great man himself, build on. Thank you very much and have a great day.